So a few weeks ago, I talked to a teacher named Jenny. Her school is next to Barnegat Bay in New Jersey. This is heavily polluted by agricultural runoff. And these are not stock photos. This is a real place, a real person. It's a real problem. She told me that the community wants to understand the pollution. They want to do science. To do science, they need measurements. But they're struggling. They want better tools. The answer is in our hands. There's tons of old smartphones sitting gathering dust. Meanwhile, the price of sensors is dropping dramatically. Let's put these together and put them in schools. So I'm going to give you a demo. This is some water from Shoreline Park, just down the road, Mountain View. This is water from a tidal area in Palo Alto. And this is water from the Pacific Ocean next to San Francisco. These are real water samples from these places. And this is Elliot. Let's pretend Elliot is a middle school student. He goes on a field trip to go measure water samples. He's got a phone, he's got sensors, and the phone is showing him in real time the value of the sensors. He can immediately see how his actions, how the environment is being converted into numbers. He can look at the time series history of each of the variables. So he finishes up his field trip. He goes back to the classroom, and now he looks at the web browser, loads up this data. So he sees that there is differences between these measurements. These are real measurements from these water samples. So there's higher salinity in the Pacific Ocean. That makes sense. Dissolved oxygen is lower in the Mountain View sample. Now Elliot's curious, what's the relationship between water and weather? So he loads up some weather data. He looks at a time series. He zooms in, he analyzes the data, he looks at it more closely, explores the data. He does a scatter plot. He does a histogram. He starts to find relationships between these variables. Now he decides to look at a map view. He sees data recorded by his classmates and recorded by students at other schools from around the Bay Area. He begins to see how this data relates to each other in space and in time. And he discusses this data with his classmates and with other students at other schools. He learns that math and science are social activities. Elliot is doing what a scientist does. He's building mathematical models. He's doing statistics and signal processing. These are ordinarily college-level subjects, but they could be taught in middle school if they were taught in a way that's hands-on and engaging. At the same time, Elliot learns about the problems and pitfalls of using math and data. Conflicting measurements, noisy data, faulty models, faulty statistics, data ethics, privacy. These are huge issues in today's data-driven society, but students aren't prepared. This isn't taught in most K-12 schools. Teachers want to teach this material. I already told you about Barnegat Bay. There's a school in Minnesota that takes water measurements from a polluted lake. They carry buckets of water from the lake into their school lab. They should be taking the lab out into the world. There's a group in Ghana that's teaching how to make practical energy systems. They want portable sensors. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could take these sensors and combine it with the mobile phone infrastructure they have in Africa? They could do citizen science, citizen weather, citizen energy. It could solve problems that are economic problems and social problems. So now let me tell you about some lessons we've learned. So I went to Boston to try this out with some real high school students, and they use sensors and phones to gather data from around their school. Problem is, they built devices that look like bombs. You don't want to take this on an airplane. Open it up, still looks like a bomb. So people were scared. People were asking questions. It was a good educational experience, but not what we were actually trying to teach. So there were employees at a grocery store that actually nicknamed the students the Bomb Squad. So the lesson is obvious. These devices need to be more friendly. Friendly so that the students are comfortable, friendly so that the community is comfortable, and friendly so that the teachers are comfortable. Teachers tell us they don't have time for soldering and programming. They're trying to teach math and science, not electronics. They want to get past the technology and focus on teaching. Teachers also ask us about the state standards. Fortunately, these standards are changing. Just a few weeks ago, they announced new science standards. This is big news. This is the first major change in science standards in many years. The new standards emphasize hands-on learning, including going out into the field and getting data. So the time is ripe for this approach. Students understand phones. Students are engaged by real-time feedback. With this system, students get meaningful data to solve meaningful problems. With these devices, we can democratize science. Thank you.
Okay, so feedback from our judges on ManyLabs.
So what do you make?
So we make, well, lots of different things, but we're mostly focused actually on the software, on the tools for letting teachers look at data, let students look at data, and share data with other students, other schools, and have both general purpose tools that teachers can adapt to their own lesson plans, and then also provide lesson material. So have a app store for content related to this kind of subject.
So the onus is on the teacher to come up with a way to incorporate this in their class and get the materials.
Well, we do have these lessons, which are we've created several dozen of these lessons so far, and have tools for other people to create the lessons, so that you do have prepackaged lessons, activities. So you can either use those, or you can make your own using the more general tools.
I'm still trying to struggle to understand what the business actually is. Are you selling access to the tools, a spreadsheet? What's the actual business itself?
So it's another one of these freemium setups where the tools, the general purpose tools, are free. For the content, we are setting up a marketplace for that content. So we really think that the curriculum is the valuable part, that the lessons that are tailored to particular state standards, that's what people will actually pay for.
What's an example of that, and how much would I pay for that if I were a teacher?
So it's like other app stores you might have heard of, where it's a few dollars for a lesson. So if you pay $2, $3, $4 for a lesson, and then you can use that for an entire year with any of your classes. And an example would be something that guides students through setting up sensors, gathering data in the classroom, a physics lesson, where you have an accelerometer or a sonar sensor, which you can then use to calculate position, velocity, acceleration. So it's a very structured, you have a series of goals to solve. The students have a series of goals to solve.
How much would you charge for that? You said $2 or $3 for an app? It seems incredibly underpriced.
Well, the idea is that you have, that a teacher would use, so this is one activity. During the course of a year,
you would use 50.
Yeah, 50.
Got it. Okay. Very good.
How am I hooking up my classroom with all these used sensors? And that seems to be a big barrier to use. That image at the beginning got me excited. I was thinking, there's got to be a way to get all these there, but I don't know how to.
Yeah, how do they get the sensor pack? Are you going to package that? Or
yeah, we sell kits of sensors, and the idea is that it's an open standard that we're using so that other people can sell kits of sensors, so that these can be very affordable. We really want to be able to get this into public schools. So we're looking at the cheapest sensors we can find. We're using old phones specifically so that it can be...
What's the range in terms of cost depending on sensors? As little as X and as much as Y?
An individual sensor goes from between $2 and $200.
So what would the whole pack be? If I had the rich private school, what's the most I could spend on a sensor pack? And if I'm on a budget, what can I spend?
Yeah, the most would probably be the full environmental water monitoring, which would be about $600.
That's it?
Yeah.
You say that as if it's a lot of money.
Well, you could actually do real science with much cheaper sensors that for the cost of a textbook, you can get the phone, the hardware that connects it to the sensors, and a half dozen to a dozen individual sensors.
Packaging that up is going to be key for you guys, because what you just explained, it sounded way easier for me to get a bucket and go get the water and bring it back.
Yeah.
So
I mean, usability is our big thing. I mean, this is the first time we're talking about this publicly.
Right.
We want to find teachers who want to try this
No, it's awesome.
and tell us
Right.
how
So
to make
this
it work.
project is very early, just in the range of projects we picked, but we thought it was so promising that we had to have it here.
No, it's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
what do
you're
you-
basically pre-packaging. I mean, you've made this as an experiment.
Yeah.
Is this
yeah.
something where you think you're going to package it and try to, or was it already on Kickstarter? Or
No. I mean, the Kickstarter is one possible venue to make this a real thing.
the Kickstarter is getting pretty
Yeah.
awesome these days.
Yeah.
What are the ramifications for like scientists all over the world that can now tap into this data? I mean, if you guys package this up and do well, and there's kids basically that are now, water testers everywhere, like that data is
Yeah, I mean,
huge.
Talking to Jenny, who's doing this at Barnegat Bay, that
Right.
initially a lot of the actual state scientists were skeptical of this, but once they saw that they could get meaningful data, they
Right.
loved the idea of getting much more detailed in space and time, getting that data. So there are environmental scientists who want to do this. Who want
And the
this.
and
pro
they should
version-
be seeding it with kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they
Yeah.
should be donating it.
It
Yeah.
seems to me the pro version is 1,000 of these out there going into a Wikipedia
Right.
repository so you can
Right.
see the change in pH levels across oceans after a tsunami and have this massive group discussion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or early warning system. I mean, if kids right now are learning about the environmental change from scientists, and here they would be learning about the environmental changes from the environment. I mean, this
Yeah.
is just a huge paradigm shift, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea is that students, everyone, we see data all the time, but we don't have hands-on experience. We haven't gathered our own data. We haven't seen the problems with data. So by doing it yourself, we'll prepare everyone to be better, members of our data-driven society.
You guys, sorry. You guys remind me a bit of this cool project I saw that teaches kids neuroscience by dissecting cockroaches. I think it's called Backyard Brain. I don't know. Is there like a whole kind of class of hands-on learning teams that could band up or band together and take over the world with hands-on learning?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, Make Magazine and those sorts of people are working on lots of, ways of getting making and hacking into classrooms. But I do think that it needs to be, it needs to be packaged up, as you're saying. That, a lot of the teachers don't have time to, if they spend a lot of time working on the hacking and the making, the students are exhausted and they don't actually go on to the math and science. So you can start with a prepackaged thing, have students get familiar with the data, with the concepts, and then once they're familiar with that, they can go off and start hacking and making.
John, what do you think? Looking at this and implementing it in a school?
Yeah, I think actually you someone over here triggered some interesting thinking about the power of this, not just for one school, but totally virally. And I think that's, as a teacher, that would be what would be most exciting to me. I think there are a lot of ways to do science labs in a school, but harnessing the power of my classroom and classrooms around the world, and then my kids are doing that, is pretty incredible too.
Yeah, just think about a nuclear fallout after Fukushima, and Fukushima would be incredible for students all around Japan, China, Hawaii doing that, trying to pick up that radiation or through different sensors.
Yeah.
Not too much of the radiation, but we wouldn't send them into the danger zone, apparently.
Jason.
This is awesome, and I really appreciate you guys sharing with us and coming out to do this. Big round of applause, everybody, for ManyLabs.
Thank you.